In the early 16th century, two empires stood on opposite ends of destiny. On one side, the Aztec Empire, a civilization of warriors, priests, and emperors, commanded the heart of Mesoamerica. Their towering temples kissed the skies, their markets overflowed with gold, and their gods demanded blood to keep the world in balance. On the other side, across a vast ocean, Spain, newly united, hungry for wealth, and armed with steel, gunpowder, and unshakable faith, gazed westward. In 1519, Hernán Cortés led just over 500 Spaniards into a world unknown to them, a world brimming with power and mystery. What followed was not just a battle for land, but a clash of civilizations. Empire versus empire, where faith, greed, betrayal, and destiny converged to forever alter history. Chapter 1: The Aztec World Before the Conquest. Long before the Spanish arrived, the Aztec Empire dominated central Mexico. Their capital, Tenochtitlan, rose like a dream from the waters of Lake Texcoco, with causeways stretching to distant shores, canals glistening beneath the sun, and markets where thousands traded cacao, jade, feathers, and obsidian. The city was a marvel that stunned even the Spaniards, who would later call it more magnificent than anything in Europe. Life revolved around religion and war. The Aztecs believed that only human sacrifice could keep the cosmos alive, and thus they expanded relentlessly, demanding tribute and captives from surrounding peoples. Yet beneath this grandeur lay tension. Dozens of subjugated tribes resented Aztec domination and waited for a chance to rebel. Their resentment would become a weapon for the Spaniards. Montezuma II, the emperor, ruled with authority and divine reverence, but whispers of unrest reached even his palace. Prophecies spoke of the return of a god from the east, a figure with pale skin and a beard, and these omens haunted Montezuma's decisions. The empire appeared invincible, but its foundations were weaker than they seemed. In the far-off lands of Spain, meanwhile, the hunger for wealth and power drove explorers into the unknown. The New World promised riches beyond imagination, and gold had become Spain's obsession. No one in Tenochtitlan knew that, across the ocean, strangers were already preparing to enter their world, and their arrival would bring both opportunity and destruction. Chapter 2: Hernán Cortés and his destiny. Hernán Cortés was not born into greatness, but his ambition burned hotter than any forge. Born in Izabaú in Spain, he studied law briefly before abandoning it for a life of adventure in the Indies. By 1511, he had settled in Cuba, where he served under Governor Diego Velázquez. But Cortés craved more than stability. He wanted glory. When rumors of wealthy lands across the sea reached him, he defied Velázquez's cautious orders and prepared his own expedition. In February 1519, Cortés set sail from Cuba with 11 ships, fewer than 600 men, 16 horses, and a handful of cannon. Among his company were soldiers, sailors, priests, translators, and enslaved Africans. A diverse and desperate group, united by promises of gold and eternal fame. Despite their small numbers, they carried tools the Aztecs had never seen: steel armor, muskets, and war horses. Cortés believed destiny itself guided him, and his audacity would shape the coming events. The Spanish crown may not have fully sanctioned Cortés's mission, but he acted boldly, knowing success would force recognition. For him, this was not merely conquest, it was a chance to etch his name into history. But as he gazed upon the distant mainland, Cortés could not have imagined the scale of the empire awaiting him, nor the resistance he would face. Chapter 3. First Steps on Aztec Soil. Landed on the coast of present-day Veracruz, a humid alien landscape where towering forests met the sea. Here, he encountered the Totonacs, a people subjugated by the Aztecs and forced to pay tribute in goods and captives. Unlike other tribes, the Totonacs viewed the Spaniards as potential allies against their overlords. Seizing the opportunity, Cortés forged an alliance, gaining warriors, guides, and knowledge of Aztec politics. Central to Cortés's success was Malinche, known to the Spanish as La Malinche, a Nahua woman given to him as a translator. Fluent in multiple indigenous languages, she became his voice, advisor, and confidant. Through her, Cortés understood not only the Aztec tongue, but the complex web of rivalries among Mesoamerican peoples. Without her, the conquest might have failed before it began. To secure loyalty among his men, Cortés famously burned his ships, eliminating any hope of retreat. There would be no turning back. Victory or death were the only options. With a growing army of Spanish soldiers and Totonac allies, Cortés set his sights inland, toward the heart of the Aztec world and the city whispered about in awe, Tenochtitlan. Chapter 4. Meeting Montezuma's messengers. As Cortés advanced inland, word of his arrival reached Montezuma in Tenochtitlan. Reports of strange men with pale skin, thunderous weapons, and beast-like creatures spread like wildfire. The emperor, deeply religious and cautious, consulted priests and oracles. Some believed these strangers were divine envoys, perhaps even the returning god Quetzalcoatl, fulfilling ancient prophecy. Montezuma sent emissaries bearing lavish gifts of gold, feathers, and precious stones to appease these newcomers and persuade them to leave. But to the Spaniards, these gifts were not offerings of peace, but invitations to seize unimaginable wealth. Gold fever consumed Cortés and his men, hardening their resolve to march onward. The Aztec envoys warned of dangers ahead, but he ignored them. Instead, he used the information they unwittingly provided to plan his advance. Two worlds were moving toward inevitable collision, and neither fully understood the other. Chapter 5. The Tlaxcalan Alliance. One of Cortés's most decisive moves came when he confronted the Tlaxcalans, a fierce people long at war with the Aztecs. At first, the Tlaxcalans resisted fiercely, launching wave after wave of warriors against the Spaniards. But after several bloody battles, they realized the potential of an alliance. Cortés persuaded the Tlaxcalan leaders that together they could topple their common enemy. This alliance added thousands of warriors to the Spanish cause and gave Cortés an invaluable foothold in central Mexico. The Tlaxcalans became the Spaniards' most loyal and deadly allies. This growing coalition of indigenous peoples underscored the truth. The conquest of the Aztecs was not merely Spain versus an empire. It was a civil war among Mesoamerican peoples. With the Spanish as catalysts, the stage was now set for Cortés's boldest gamble yet, entering itself. Chapter Liu. Entering in November 1519, Cortés and his army finally reached Tenochtitlan. The city dazzled them beyond imagination. Built upon a lake, its causeways stretched like ribbons, and its floating gardens seemed to defy nature. Markets teemed with tens of thousands of traders, and towering temples dominated the skyline. Bernal Diaz, a soldier in Cortés's army, later wrote that no city in Europe compared to its splendor. Montezuma welcomed Cortés into the city with cautious hospitality, housing him in a grand palace and showering him with gifts. But beneath the politeness lay tension. The Spaniards sought gold, the Aztecs sought understanding, and mistrust simmered beneath every gesture. Cortés seized the moment, studying the city's defenses and political divisions. He knew that to control Tenochtitlan, he would need to control Montezuma himself. Soon, the fragile peace would shatter. Chapter 7: Montezuma, under siege. Fearing betrayal and desperate to secure his position, Cortés made a bold move. He took Montezuma hostage within his own palace. Under the guise of protection, the emperor became a prisoner, a puppet through whom Cortés tried to rule the empire. The Aztec nobility seethed at this humiliation, but Montezuma's authority kept them at bay for a time. Meanwhile, Cortés demanded tribute and gold, melting treasures into bars to ship back to Spain. Each act deepened resentment and fanned the flames of rebellion. For months, Cortés balanced on a knife's edge, ruling through intimidation while relying on fragile alliances. But events beyond Tenochtitlan soon forced his hand, and chaos erupted. Chapter 8: The Massacre at the Great Temple. While Cortés tightened his grip on Tenochtitlan, word reached him that a Spanish force under Penéfilo de Narváez had landed in Veracruz, sent by Governor Velázquez to arrest him. Leaving a small garrison under Pedro de Alvarado, Cortés marched to confront Narváez, defeating him swiftly and absorbing his men into his own army. But while Cortés was away, disaster struck within the Aztec capital. Alvarado, paranoid and suspicious, attacked during a sacred festival at the Great Temple, slaughtering hundreds of unarmed Aztec nobles, priests, and warriors. Blood flowed down the temple steps, and drums of war thundered across the city. The massacre ignited an inferno of rage that consumed any remaining trust. When Cortés returned, he found Tenochtitlan in open revolt. The streets that once welcomed him now bristled with spears and obsidian blades. The fragile balance between diplomacy and domination shattered completely, and war became inevitable. Chapter 9: La Noche Triste, the Night of Sorrows. In June 1520, Cortés attempted to flee Tenochtitlan under the cover of darkness, carrying gold plundered from the city. But the Aztecs struck back. Warriors attacked from canoes, rooftops, and causeways, raining death upon the retreating Spaniards and their allies. The narrow causeways became killing fields. Laden with gold, many Spaniards drowned in the lake as they tried to escape. Horses fell into the waters, cannon sank beneath the surface, and chaos ruled the night. Hundreds of Spaniards and thousands of indigenous allies perished. Cortés himself barely escaped with his life, collapsing beneath a tree at dawn. According to legend, he wept bitterly for his losses, a moment forever remembered as La Noche Triste, the Night of Sorrows. But though broken, Cortés was not defeated. He vowed to return, stronger than ever, and bring the Aztec Empire to its knees. Chapter 10: The Road to Vengeance. After the devastating retreat, Cortés regrouped in Tlaxcala, where his allies welcomed him despite the crushing defeat. Here, he rebuilt his forces, forging new alliances and bolstering his army with tens of thousands of indigenous warriors who longed for Aztec downfall. Cortés also learned from his failures. He ordered the construction of brigantines, small, maneuverable ships designed to control Lake Texcoco during the next siege. With these floating fortresses, he planned to turn Tenochtitlan's greatest defense into its trap. Meanwhile, Tenochtitlan reeled under a new catastrophe. Smallpox, Introduced inadvertently by the Spaniards, the disease tore through the population, killing thousands, including Montezuma's successor, Cuitlahuac. As the empire weakened, Cortés prepared for his final, brutal assault. Chapter 11. In May 1521, Cortés launched his siege. Tens of thousands of Tlaxcalan warriors marched alongside Spanish soldiers, while the brigantines patrolled the lake, cutting off supplies to the city. Starvation gripped Tenochtitlan, but its defenders fought with unmatched courage and ferocity. Day after day, the Spaniards advanced, tearing down bridges and buildings, while Aztec warriors counterattacked with obsidian blades and volleys of arrows. Women fought beside men, hurling stones from rooftops. The once great city became a battlefield of rubble and blood. Yet slowly, inevitably, the Spanish and their allies tightened the noose. Disease, hunger, and exhaustion ravaged the Aztec defenders. Still, they refused to surrender, fighting for every canal, every street, every temple step, until the city itself seemed to cry out in agony. Chapter 12. The Fall of the Aztec Empire. On August 13, 1521, the last Aztec emperor, Cuauhtémoc, was captured as he tried to escape across the lake. Exhausted, starving, and outnumbered, his people could fight no more. The Aztec Empire, once the most powerful force in Mesoamerica, had fallen. Lay in ruins, its temples burned, its canals clogged with bodies. The lake that had nourished its greatness now reflected only smoke and death. For the Aztecs, it was the end of an age. For Spain, it marked the dawn of a vast colonial empire. Cortés entered the shattered city as a conqueror, but victory brought no peace. Behind him lay devastation. Ahead, the long shadow of colonization stretched across the Americas. Chapter 13. La Malinche, the voice of two worlds. Amid the clash of civilizations, one figure bridged two worlds. Malintzin, or La Malinche. Enslaved as a girl, she became Cortés's translator, advisor, and, in many ways, his equal in strategy. Through her, alliances were forged, treaties signed, and betrayals whispered into reality. To some, she is remembered as a traitor who enabled the fall of her people. To others, she was a survivor, navigating impossible choices in a world torn apart by forces far beyond her control. Her legacy is as complex as the conquest itself. Without Malintzin's voice, Cortés's conquest might have faltered. Her role reminds us that history is rarely written by simple heroes and villains, but by people caught in tides greater than themselves. Chapter 14. The cost of conquest. The fall of the Aztec Empire came at an unimaginable cost. Tens of thousands died in battle, and hundreds of thousands more succumbed to disease. Entire communities were erased, and ancient traditions shattered under Spanish rule. Cortés himself gained wealth and power, but faced accusations of cruelty even from his own countrymen. Spain's hunger for gold drove waves of colonization that reshaped the continent, enslaving indigenous peoples and dismantling centuries-old civilizations. Yet out of destruction came transformation. Aztec culture endured, blending with Spanish traditions to create new languages, religions, and identities. Mexico today still carries the echoes of this violent collision, where past and present walk side by side. Chapter 15. A clash that changed the world. The Spanish conquest of the Aztecs was more than the fall of an empire. It was a turning point in global history. It marked the dawn of European dominance in the Americas, the spread of Christianity, and the birth of a new, hybrid culture born of blood and fire. For Spain, the conquest opened the gates to unimaginable wealth and power. For the Aztecs and their neighbors, it ushered in centuries of upheaval and resistance. Yet their spirit endured, preserved in language, art, and memory. 500 years later, the echoes of Tenochtitlan still resonate. The canals are gone, the temples destroyed, but the story remains, a reminder of how two worlds collided, reshaping not only a continent, but the destiny of humankind. From the splendor of Tenochtitlan to the ambitions of Cortés, the Spanish conquest of the Aztecs stands as one of history's most profound turning points. It is a story of courage and cruelty, faith and betrayal, resilience and loss. The empire of the Aztecs may have fallen, but its legacy lives on, etched in stone, in blood, and in memory. If you found this deep dive into history captivating, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an epic story from the past. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you see Cortés as a visionary, a villain, or both? Until next time, keep questioning history, because every empire leaves a story worth telling.